Welcome. This is Chuck Ellis, and you are watching the Muddy Waters podcast. The Muddy Waters podcast exists, as I always say, to help the people of Maine better understand what's actually going on in our state through highlighting, different people from around the state, whether it be legislators, people in business, individuals, and talking about the things that mainstream media is not talking about. The mainstream media's job, as I see it, the media's job, I should say, as I see it, is to inform the people on what's actually happening. Unfortunately, the mainstream media in Maine and nationally is all focused on pushing you to the thing that you have the least power and control over, which is what's going on the national scene, and not educating you on what's going on in your backyard. And so part of why we do what we do is because they're derelict in their duty, and they're mostly focused on what's going on nationally, and they're also not talking about the things that are going on in our state that matter. And so that's what we try to do here by interviewing people from around the state so that people can't say things like, oh, that's not really happening. It's like, no, here's the interview. Here's the person who's telling you what happened to them and their family. So that's what we're doing. Today, we are fortunate to have with us Dov Sacks, who is, amongst other things, the president, I think is the term? Chairman of the right. Common Sense for Maine PAC. So thank you for joining us, Dov.
Thanks for having me. It's great. Yeah. It's great to be here. I understand you don't typically have guests in person.
I don't have guests in person. This is the first time I've ever had a guest in person at my house in my studio, also known as my kitchen.
Yeah.
Or dining room is a better way to put it. Yeah.
It's a very impressive techie setup you have.
Well, thanks. I have a friend who helped me put it all together. So, because I don't know what I'm doing as far as that stuff goes. All I know how to do is talk. I'm good at talking. I'm a good conversationalist, I guess is what I've been told. So
I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah. That's fine by me. I think you're the lawyer, though. You're not supposed to be. Well, the lawyers become judges, right? That's how it works.
That is how it works. Yeah. That's a prerequisite, I think.
Yeah.
I think in some states it might not be a prerequisite.
That would be crazy. That would be wild.
In Philadelphia, I moved to Maine from Philadelphia in 2014. Yeah. There you have elected judges, and it's a crazy process because everyone throws their hat in the ring, and then they draw the vote, the order of the ballot by like just random from a hat. So if you get in the top 3, you're automatically a judge. Effectively.
Yeah.
So everyone who's a lawyer who's like basically not successful, not making any money, who would be a dramatic pay raise for, or they just want the power trip, they'll throw their hat in the ring. And then you inevitably get the top 3 are just these randos who become judges.
Wow.
So that's Philadelphia for you.
That's crazy. Well, speaking of law, one of the ththings, there's a couple of reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast, obviously. One is like you're very politically active. You're the the chairman of the Common Sense for Maine PAC. But also you have a really unique story, or I shouldn't say it is unique, but it's also becoming more and more common, of starting off not as a Republican and somehow finding yourself in the Republican Party and more than that, I would say. Yeah. Right. And so I just want to have you, but there's also a faith component. And even though my podcast is focused on politics, one of the things that I'm becoming more and more convinced of, right, is that in order for us to resurrect our society, in order for us to save Maine, the United States, a spiritual awakening is necessary. So there is a spiritual component. If we actually believe that we're going to be able to fix our world, if the government is not the solution to the problems in our world, and we believe it is not as conservatives, right? We believe the government causes problems. We also have a societal problem. And so I think faith, in particular, I believe in Jesus. I'm not saying everybody has to agree with me, although if they want to be right,
I'm with you.
But I think that there needs to be an element. I mean, it needs to be,
baked in.
It has to be baked in, because part of the problem is that you have all these needs that exist in society, that you need something to be able to meet those needs. And the church is what used to be the answer in historic American culture. But we shifted to allowing the government to kind of take that place. And well, if we pull the government back out, well, then the church needs to step up, which means we need people engaged in church. Anyway, there's all that. But so, and your story includes a lot of elements of that. So I just, So who are you? Where do you come from? How did you come to Maine? And then how did you, what along those lines, what's your political process? Like, how did you come to the place of being a conservative, and where did you start?
That's a lot of
That's
questions.
a lot. It's a lot.
Okay.
It's not as bad as Russell Brand. I was watching and he asked somebody a question and it was like, they were like, I think it was like 7 questions.
Well, yours are big ones too.
Big, yeah,
but I'll take
yeah.
a crack at it. First of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's great to be on your show.
Yeah.
You and I have become friends over the last, I don't know, couple of years, if
A
even.
couple of months.
No.
Yeah, I think we met like maybe 6 months ago, 5 months ago.
Where we had coffee, extended coffee, but it wasn't a couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely after I got back from Kenya in January. So it would have been, and it was, I think I was at that point, I was already the chairman of the Cumberland County Republicans. So we're talking March at probably the earliest.
Whoa,
so we're talking like maybe 5 months.
Yeah, time's gotten warped, but it
feels
feels like we've known each other for longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully a lot longer yet, God willing.
Yeah.
So my story, let's see. So I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish community in New York. My great-great-grandfather was the chief rabbi of Jerusalem for 50 years. So my parents were set up, right? Very like esteemed intellects in that world, I guess you would say. And you know, no one really leaves that community. But my mom left that community when I was 5. She divorced my dad, who was in medical school, and kind of was exposed to secular things and left it. And so I was in Orthodox Jewish schools as a kid till I was like 10. And then we relocated to Florida, and my mom met my stepdad, who's a Catholic guy. And my first year in the secular world, I was at St. Mark's Academy. So I went from Hillel Academy in Pittsburgh to St. Mark's in Florida. And I'll never forget that first day I went to school, and I didn't realize there was even a chapel. And there was every day. And it was, you know, Episcopal's pretty formal. And I was expected to kneel down and to the cross. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. I went to the headmaster's office and I was like, I'm Jewish. I'm not going to be coming to this. And she was like, oh, yes, you are. If you want to be part of this school, you'll be coming and you will be on time. And so, you know, fast forward a few months and I was an acolyte, you know, carrying the cross and learned a lot, actually. But that was my first exposure to Christianity. But still wasn't, you know, theologically into it. And then went to school down in Florida for high school. Did very well. Went to Harvard undergrad, but was just very self-motivated. You know, very ambitious. Went to law school after that. By the time I got to law school, I was very left. I was really, you would say, even a communist, because I'm kind of a first principles guy, and once you're going the way of social justice, for me, it's kind of a slippery slope to the ultimate redistribution, you know? Well,
what's interesting, I like to highlight this regarding the slippery slope, because it's the one logical fallacy that tends to be true a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not logically true that definitely because this happens, this, that's where it's a slippery slope. It doesn't necessarily. But practically, in real life, it tends to wind up being true a lot. You know, and so it's interesting how that works. But like whereas some of the other ones appeal to authority. I mean, you could argue sometimes the authorities know what they're talking about, but a lot of times they just have authority.
Yeah.
But with slippery slope, it's fascinating how often it ends up being true.
I've never heard anyone make that point. I've thought about it a lot. Very insightful point. It is a fallacy. It's not true that just because you're at some point that you're going to proceed forward, and it's used a lot, especially in the courtroom. But then again, there's a momentum that things create. But I think for me, just kind of I've always tried to kind of figure things out, you know, and take things to their limit. And so I did, and probably spent about 10 years of my life, you know, immersed in communist circles, reading all the literature, you know, you name it. The anti-colonial struggles and all the revolutionary movements coming from the communist place. Those were kind of my heroes along the way. And I think I was in rebellion against the faith that, because when my mom left Orthodox Judaism, we were kind of excommunicated in a way.
Yep.
And it felt very unjust. And I think I threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Sure.
So I had this void in my life because I was raised that was the most important thing, but yet I was rejecting it. And I needed to fill it. And, you know, Pascal said that we have a God-shaped vacuum. Right.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah.
And it's if you don't fill it with God, you're gonna fill it with something else.
This time it was communism.
And whatever else it is, it's gonna be a mess.
Yeah.
But nothing's messier than communism. And so so I went deep into that, and thankfully stayed away from any violent strands of it, because really, once you're using the greater good logic, anything goes, you know?
Yeah.
So stayed on the right line of that important line, right side of that line. But yeah, after that, I basically detoxed when I met my wife in 2008. I was into her, but like I had the pathologies that communists have in terms of their thinking, where it's very black and white, and it's very like there are all these litmus tests of who is good and who is not, and it was kind of incompatible with deeper human relationship in my life, and I was surrounded with some toxicities that I realized are kind of baked in to communism. You know, it's so sanctimonious and so self-righteous that it just breeds a certain personality that is distasteful. So, I was also kind of in a dark spot, you know, emotionally, coming out of that and some other things in my life. And so I went to a therapist who, by the grace of God, really pointed me toward meditation. And that was kind of a transition from communism to detoxing from communism with Buddhism, where I kind of lived for about, I don't know, 8 years. And so I got heavy into that. And it was described to me like very clinically to deal with anxiety and depression. Just stare at a point on the wall for 5 minutes, and every time your attention wavers, come back to the point, you know? And that's how it was taught to me by, you know, a Western therapist. But as I soon realized, that was a form of Vipassana meditation that, as the story goes, the Buddha used to achieve enlightenment. So not that I achieved enlightenment, but it was a lot.
Well, you did eventually. You met Jesus.
Hey, there you go. There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So Buddhism is cool because Buddhism, and you know, unlike Buddhism doesn't talk about God really at all.
Depending on what strand, I guess. You delved into it, but I remember learning about it in school, and there were like a couple of different, you know, thought I guess sects within Buddhism, and some believe that there are the bodhisattvas, which are the gods essentially that you can become after once you reach enlightenment or something along those lines. But I think the main strand of Buddhism seems to suggest that the idea of believing in a god is a bad idea. It's not, because it's not real. But
my interaction was mostly Theravada Buddhism.
Okay.
But I'm also familiar with what you're talking about. Yeah. And in my exposure to it, there just wasn't much, even for bodhisattvas, it wasn't really about God. It was more about enlightenment and emulating the Buddha, who himself is not discussed as God. So there's kind of like less blasphemy than is typically involved in non-Christian religions or non-Judeo-Christian religion. And in that exposure, you know, Buddhism answers the question that it asks. Buddhism asks the question, how do you end human suffering? Right? And then it prescribes the Eightfold Path to get that, which is really centered on meditation and detachment from your thoughts. And if you implement the protocol for Buddhism, you're going to reduce your human suffering dramatically. And for me, it was life-saving.
Well, it sounds interesting, because I think there is an element, like a lot of, I'm not really engaged in Buddhism a lot, because I found Jesus at a relatively young age, grew up in the church and all that kind of stuff. But there's an element of like the way that you like kind of detach from a lot of things in society that tend to lead you down frightening paths that I think going into something where you're like cutting yourself off from that and spending some time in silence, and which is what you're doing, is a really good way to like at least get detached from, you know, from those things, which I think. Anyway, it seems like it's a really good. I wonder if my brain is going in a couple of different directions, but it seems like a really peaceful and healthy thing over against secularism and commercialism, materialism, and things like that. Obviously, I believe Jesus is the place you end up needing to get to. But I had a pastor friend that I learned a lot from, and he said that if he wasn't a Christian, he'd be a Buddhist, and it sounds like there's a lot of value in that, but it doesn't. I think it lacks the actual ultimate answer.
Well, I think it lacks the ultimate question.
Okay,
which is what's the purpose of life?
Yeah.
Right. But it asks the question, how do you end human suffering?
Right.
And to put a fine point on what you're saying, basically the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism are: there is suffering. Suffering comes from clinging or attachment to things as opposed to the objective thing itself. 3, you can end suffering and achieve nirvana. And 4, the way to do it is through the Eightfold Path, which is, right effort, right speaking, right understanding, etc. But that idea of clinging being the cause of suffering, and it gets operationalized very practically because Buddhism looks at the life as having 6 senses, not 5. And the 6th is thinking.
Okay.
Which is so antithetical to the West, where Enlightenment thought based on Descartes is I think, therefore I am. Right. That's that. If you have to put what is it? Cogito. I don't know what it is. You probably know in Latin, but it's famous. I can't remember it.
Is it the I am, I exist? Because there's I think, therefore I am, but there's another place where he said I am, I exist.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Is,
but classically, it's I think, therefore
that
I
is
am.
yeah.
And in a way, if you think about the Western experience, like what people think about X, Y, and Z is like their identity.
Yep.
So in our culture, it's like, if you talk to a social justice warrior, it's like I believe in whatever, gender fluidity or
helping people,
and that's that thought that is their identity. Whereas Buddhism just regards thinking as a 6th sense, very much like an odor or a touch or a taste. And you can, if you smell a rose or you smell a skunk, people aren't identifying with that. You would just say there's a nice smelling rose, there is a foul smelling skunk, and that's applied to thinking. So for all of our thoughts, whether good, bad, indifferent, happy, sad, whatever, rather than identifying to it and often getting lost in it because we feel like, why am I thinking that, or where's that coming from? Instead, thoughts are looked at much more like clouds in the sky, and you can have a beautiful puffy cloud, you can have a rain cloud, but ultimately the brilliant sky is always behind it, and it's going to pass.
Yeah.
Everything that arises will pass, will fade away, is kind of a Buddhist mantra. So for me, being, depressed and anxious at the time, basically depression being a form of clinging to our past and anxiety being a form of clinging to the future, Buddhism taught me how to be more present, because in the meditative action of identifying your thoughts and then letting them go, releasing them and coming back to the present, that dot that my therapist said come back to, you just get this muscle memory. That's literally like a workout where over time you're just naturally coming back to the present and even not straying from the present as much. And it connects to the Judeo-Christian tradition where God says to Moses, he says, who should I tell them that you are? When he tells them to, by the burning bush to go free the Israelites, he says, I am that I am, right?
Yep.
And that's the living God who's present. And so Buddhism kind of creates space for that by encouraging that exercise to be present. I think of life as like a line where we're just bouncing down a dot on the line, and every moment we have, every instant we have is another dot. But in that dot, if you're occupying that dot with thoughts of the past, i.e. depression, or thoughts of the future, i.e. anxiety, that dot's gone, and you just wasted it on something other than the present.
Yep.
And in the West, you find a lot of people who actually live their whole lives but never live even a minute, an instant present.
Yeah.
Not even an instant.
Yeah.
And so I'll always have so much love for Buddhism and what it taught me. And I don't find it, because it asks the limited question, it it doesn't even seem contradictory to Christianity. And actually, there's a theory that, you know, in Luke, what is Jesus 12 when his parents leave him behind and he's
12 or 13,
in the temple.
right
I think 12.
Yeah.
And then he next shows up at 30. And one theory that has a lot of supporters out there is that he went east during those intervening years and spent time in Buddhist monastery, and that Christianity, in a sense, is a fusion of Buddhism and Orthodox Judaism. And I don't necessarily believe that, but it's an interesting theory. It resonated for me when I came to Christ 5 years ago. That it was, I see why there's support for it. But ultimately, Buddhism, because it teaches detachment, literally, not clinging.
Yep.
It left me feeling aloof. And if you meet folks who are, you know, deep down the Buddhism way of being, I think that's an adjective that you'll maybe think of. They're a bit aloof and detached, which is actually what's encouraged, but it's very different than the Christian model, which is the ideal is to attach, but to things not of this earth, right?
Yeah.
To God.
Yeah.
And so
it's interesting, real quick, because like I just kind of want to like follow along in this path, I guess. So what's fascinating to me is like you obviously going from being a communist, right?
Yeah.
Which is very focused on this world and fixing the problems in this world by, you know, collectivism, whatever you want to call it, everybody working together for everyone else, which would be great if sin didn't exist. But anyway, if human nature wasn't the way that it is. But anyway, so you go from that to something that's instead telling you to completely detach. So it's no surprise that somehow communism was not palatable anymore.
For me.
Right?
Yeah, like I said, it was I needed to detox.
Yeah.
And Buddhism was a great way to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you talk about communism, at the end of the day, it's taking all of the theological energy that is meant to be devoted to what comes after life on this earth, and they try to bring heaven onto this earth through the dictatorship of the proletariat, through material means, distribution of wealth being in some way the gateway to the higher living, which is so superficial and so silly, even if it worked, which it doesn't enhance life, quality of life in the end. But if it did, it would still just be life on this earth.
Right. So materialism isn't enough. Even if we all had everything that we ever wanted, we would not be happy. I mean, I remember, like, you know, you've got King Solomon in the Bible, right, who literally is still considered to be the richest man in history, right, based on the wealth that he had at that time, if you factor it against, anyway, the richest man ever. You know, 1,000 wives, which that sounds more is frightening than exciting, but he had everything. He had gardens and parks and everything. And what did he say? He wrote the book that says everything is meaningless. Like, I've pursued all these things and I've been left empty. And you see that.
Not everything under the sun.
Well, everything under the sun. Yes, very clear. That's a very important distinction there.
It's the essential point,
because
everything
that's
over
essentially
the sun is the only thing that has meaning.
Relationship with God and what he brings to us. Exactly. Yeah. So, but you know, we see this in our life. If you look at like the rich and the wealthy, I think Henry Ford was quoted as having said, "I was happier doing a mechanic's job." Like when he was poor and he was a mechanic, he was happier than he was when he had established the powerhouse at the time. Ford is not as what it used to be, but yeah, he created Ford, right? And he was happier having been wealthy. There's another, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's quoted as having said, I have made millions, but they have brought me no happiness or no peace.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, they do these studies, and the happiest countries are never the wealthiest countries.
Oh, yeah. I mean, having visited my wife, right,
In Kenya.
I've been to Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and the people there don't have nearly as much. They're barely getting by in a lot of, especially by American standards. Everybody would be like, oh my gosh, they're in obscene poverty, and we're against America. They are, but they're barely getting by. And yet the peace and the happiness, the joy of those who are there, it far exceeds. I mean, here in America, everybody is miserable for the most part. It reminds me of, and we'll let you get back to telling your story, but Mother Teresa, right? Who, I don't know if you heard this story, but like apparently they found her, they brought her to like a studio in New York, one of the news stations, and she looked around and she said, in all my life, I have not seen such poverty. Right, and she's the one who is working with the untouchables, the ones that people didn't even believe existed because you weren't supposed to talk about them in Indian society. And it's in America, in the midst of all the wealth, that she sees the most poverty. And so it's because these things, they do not bring happiness.
No. The only thing materially that they've studied to show that does positively affect happiness is to have enough money to pay other people to do the things that you really don't like doing. And that, to me, that made sense. There's certain things I really don't like doing. Like
plumbing?
Yeah, for example. I couldn't anyway.
Yeah.
But, so that, but yeah, that might be the limit of what money can do, happiness-wise. So that was my detox phase in Buddhism. And then that led to Ron Paul in probably 2011, 2010. Yeah, somewhere in there. I wasn't in the 2008 Ron Paul revolution, but I was pretty hardcore by 2012. And for me, that was a natural segue back to the political realm because I really kind of left it after communism. I was like, I can't even be part of it. But then I've always been into politics since I was a kid, and I kind of came back. But then it was a natural fit for the Buddhist mindset of really tolerance and non-judgment. And
because of the libertarian bent, like let people do what people want to do in their own personal lives,
and give people a total freedom, and then they will flourish, perhaps, or maybe not, but they'll have it be agents of their life, and they'll let it be known who they are. And I just and then internationally, having been a communist who really was focused on imperialism and the unfairness in the world system, like Ron Paul's non-interventionism was very attractive. So I just loved Ron Paul too.
Well, it's interesting how you talk about, just for fun, the communists, they have an imperialist mentality because they're also the ones that are anti-imperialist.
No, I was...
Sure.
What I meant was how they're focused on anti-imperialism.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
But they're focused on accomplishing it in a very imperialistic way.
That's it, right. We'll take the USSR. They were, of course, against imperialism broadly, but yet they did have the Comintern and all the communist spreading organizations.
Yeah, they were. They I mean, I think they had influence in Cuba and other places
all around the world.
With Che. Fascinating movie, by the way. I don't know if you've seen the Che movie.
The Che movie?
Yeah.
With
there's two parts.
Gabriel Garcia
Benicio del Toro plays. It's definitely I think it's trying to glorify Che.
Oh, you're talking about the one with Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the one, Motorcycle Diaries, maybe.
Oh, okay.
That was earlier.
But
Che is, I mean, I couldn't have loved Che more when I was a communist. And to me, that's like so striking of how like dead I was spiritually. That the idea that he was so cool with firing squads after the communist revolution as a means to an end, and is just such an amazing counterpoint. But really, it comes down to the view of human nature, because Christ diagnoses human nature, right? None is good but God.
Yep.
If you who are evil wouldn't give your son a fish when he asks for a stone, right? He just puts it right in there.
Yeah.
And yet, but by contrast, you have communism, which basically comes from Rousseau initially, who said that man is born perfect, but gets corrupted by modern society.
Right.
And so therefore kids need to be removed from their parents. The ultimate equalizer was removal of kids to put them in boarding schools and
Yeah.
kind of give them an ideal environment and give their perfect human nature space to flourish. So you have, on the one hand, an accurate diagnosis of human nature in Christianity. Then you have a completely inaccurate diagnosis of human nature as man being good in communism.
Yeah.
And so and I'm a medical malpractice lawyer, so a lot of my cases and a lot of medical malpractice cases really are all about misdiagnosis. Because if a doctor doesn't accurately diagnose the condition, if they think that your ulcerative colitis is actually a cancerous tumor, and they start giving you chemo and radiation, like, you're not going to get better. In fact, it'll kill you. Right. So it always comes down to the diagnosis, and communism has a completely wrong diagnosis of human nature.
Right.
And no matter how hard they try, they can't fix anything because of that misdiagnosis, and it leads to a disaster. And by contrast, you have the American Revolution that's rooted in Christianity, where they understood the fallibility of man. And so you have checks and balances. You have the branches of government. You have the Bill of Rights, right, as against the government. Because how could you give man so much power when you know the evil nature, what they'll do with it? Right. And so
we can see what they would do with it, what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So it's in counterpoint to communism, but also in counterpoint to the French Revolution. And you see the French Revolution, just a decade after the American Revolution, is the fundamental divide in our modern Western world, because you have countries like Canada, England, even Australia, that really, France, of course, that really philosophically stem from the French Revolution.
What's fascinating about the French Revolution, as I was watching the Napoleon movie that came out, I guess it was like last year, the year before, or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
With, what's his name? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But what was fascinating for me was, like, they decided they want to move away from emperors, right, and the ruling class into a democracy. And then they anoint, like, within a generation, they bring back an emperor in Napoleon.
Yeah, because they went way too far with the democracy.
Yeah, which is fascinating. Anyway, I just think it's but yeah. So these other nations, their versions of democracy was more based on the French Revolution, is what you're saying.
And it was totally majoritarian. And what do they say about democracy? It's like letting two wolves and a sheep decide what's for lunch, right? And that's why that's the central distinction. When you have any society with pure democracy, you're going to have this strong urge to the left, because by definition, only a small minority is wealthy. So you're going to get the majority that's going to want to take from them and expropriate.
Well, and this is where I've come to the conclusion, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, that, like, it's all like because of human nature, the natural consequence of democracy or even a representative republic is socialism and communism, right? Because eventually the people are going to vote for things that they're not going to think about the long term. They're going to think, what can I do to make my life better tomorrow? So, like, Portland, for instance, says, we want rent control because I don't want my rent to go up too much, right? And they're not thinking about the consequences. They're just thinking about themselves, right? And the long-term big picture is, this is bad for society. They don't care because it helps me now. And I think that, so anyway, when you talk about, like, I think they really think the logical consequence of democracy, unless we can keep the people informed, but that analogy of the two wolves and a sheep deciding is fascinating. But yeah, I think going back to you saying, like, there are going to be a few people who are wealthy and everybody is like, I want to be one of the wealthy. We want to take away from so that we can have more.
There's so much in there.
That's,
like, when does the majority ever get anything right in life? Right? Like, no one raises their kids and, like, go with the crowd. That's not how we're raised, for a reason, because narrow is the path. Yeah. Right? So anytime you're empowering the mob by definition, which pure democracy does, it's a mess. Yeah. And then beyond that, like you said, with the socialist tendency, I mean, that's why our job is so much harder on the right side of the aisle, because you can, on the left side of the aisle, you just offer free goodies, right? And it appeals to everyone.
Yeah.
And then the only way to counter it is like, it's very difficult to counter that actually. And we struggle with it.
Well, it is difficult, and it's going to be challenging, especially in this current environment where the Democrats control the media, right? That makes it very challenging on top of everything else. But I actually think like there is a strong argument to talking about how we as the Republican Party are actually about empowering people. Yes, the Democrats will give you stuff, and they will control you, and they will tell you what you can do. Think about the fact that if you're on rental assistance, you can't make too much money, which keeps you stuck on their system, right? Whereas Republicans, we want to set you free so that you don't need the government to help you pay for your rent, right? We don't need, quote unquote, affordable housing paid for by the government, but you actually, you're making money. You're doing something. You have pride in who you are, and you're doing something for yourself, and you're more fulfilled, and you have freedom.
Totally.
Right? Like that's so that I think we do have a strong argument. I don't think we're using it enough, but I think we have a strong argument, empowering the people. That's what we're about.
No, I totally agree with you. And actually now, I mean, it's happening, right?
Yeah.
Trump is kind of, as the great communicator that he is, he's every day kind of figuring out the psychological touchstones to get people to understand that it's a better way.
Yeah.
And it's really incredible.
Yeah.
And it, when you think about the two parties that we have, or really, when I litigate against big companies, I tend to frame things in the following way. Every product, in our case, party, is a result of three things: the quality of the, or I should have said every company, or in this case, party, is a product of three things. One, the product that you're selling, is it a good product?
Yep.
Is it not a good product? Obviously, better if you have a good product than if you have something that doesn't work. Two, what's your personnel, your leadership?
Yep.
Right. If you have a good company, you're going to have a good product. You're going to have a good leadership and good personnel. And third, what's your structure or organization? Right. You can have the best product, you can have the best people, but if it's not structured properly, it's going to be a mess. So you really have to have all three of those in line in order to be exceptionally successful. And so applying that,
the Democrats have the structure and not in a good way in terms of policy, right? But leadership in terms of like moving the engine forward, right? That's why they've been successful. The product is crap.
Yeah, I would. The product is huge disparity.
Right.
I mean, literally, not one policy the Democrats put forward ever works.
Right.
Like it's amazing. You could go down the line, and it's like none of it works. Yep. On the other hand, you have the Republican policies, because they're so common sense these days, right?
For Maine.
We'll get there. We'll get there. They actually work, right? Or at least don't destroy everything. Yeah. Right. They don't have to have the highest bar when comparing to the Democrats. And then the personnel. I mean, because we have the headwinds that we have on our side, it creates this excellence. Because if you're not excellent on our side, like you're going to get hammered by that media that you're talking about.
Yeah.
On the other side, so we have like a 30 deep bench of people who you could put in the presidency basically and feel pretty confident that they're gonna do okay.
My favorite wrote this book here.
Vivek, he's on that bench.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No doubt. And then on the other side, who do you have? I mean, is it Schumer? Is it Hakeem Jeffries?
I think Hakeem Jeffries is their best hope.
What do they call him?
He's an idiot.
What's Timu Obama, right?
Is that what it is?
Timu Obama. He's like a bot that they forgot to implant the personality into the software.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable to watch that dude.
It's hard to watch any of them at this point. You know what I mean? You've got, there's the woman who's in the Senate, I think, or in the House. There's AOC, and then there's this other woman who's been
Crockett.
Crockett. Yeah. Like she's like and they're just
insufferable.
It's just so bad.
It's so.
I think
bad.
their best option is actually Fetterman.
The guy who had a massive stroke.
Yeah, that's their best option.
Right? Think about that. The guy who had a massive stroke and is still barely able to string two sentences together is by far
Yeah, he actually wore a suit recently. I don't know if you saw
No,
that.
I didn't see that.
One time I saw him, he was wearing a suit, not a hoodie.
Yeah, unbelievable that they fronted like that was cool. That was every man for him to wear a disgusting sweatsuit. Total slob in the Senate.
Maybe if he was a football coach in New England, it would be okay, but not in the U.S. Senate.
Just didn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, they don't have. I mean, literally, you can't name one.
Yeah.
Not one. So their leadership and personnel.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, she switched teams now.
I know, that's my point. Yeah.
I mean, it's and anyone who's decent, they're going to switch teams.
Yeah.
Like RFK.
Yeah.
Right. There's this momentum headed toward the right now, which you never meet someone who's like, I was, I wasn't an anarcho-capitalist, or I was a Trumper, and then I read fill in the blank, and now I am a big Gavin Newsom fan.
It doesn't happen often. I will say it does happen. I had a guy on the podcast a couple weeks ago. It's one of my most watched episodes.
I saw one of those clips.
Yeah. And he claims to have. It's kind of funny because he tells his conversion. He talks about his conversion to communism, essentially, which was, I was this jerk Republican who only cared about myself and not having to pay taxes, and now I care about people. So I had this spiritual awakening to care about people and God, and therefore I'm a communist socialist. And it's like, okay.
Well, that's the misdiagnosis,
right?
Because
exactly.
when you think human nature is good, then you think, and you're again identifying in the secular West with your thoughts. So you're like, I need to be good. That's like the secular mantra. I'm a good person. Everyone walking around in whose secular mindset is thinking, I'm a good person. So therefore, everything I do and say is a product of my goodness, and it's good. So they're constantly trying to affirm that misdiagnosis. So that narrative is exactly right. Like, I realized how good I am. And it's just so upside down. And it leads to a bunch of nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah. But generally, we are seeing more people in the other direction, right? We're seeing people in the other direction that are, realizing this is unpalatable, and we're shifting. I mean, there's a whole movement called walk away, because of how unpalatable the left is. And I've got somebody I'm trying to reconnect with that I met at a Shelley Pingree rally who. I think she's technically independent, but she generally, just causing problems. So cool. Actually, I was just being quiet and watching, and I was just kind of experiencing it because a couple friends wanted to go, and my friend Ryan wanted to ask a question to Shelley Pingree, which I then went home and clipped and posted in social media.
Did you get some traction?
Oh, tons of traction. Yeah. It was like thousands of views.
Well, this is the thing. They have nothing to say.
And they don't. All they had to, it's all alarmism. That entire thing was just like, oh my gosh, Trump is going to deport legal citizens. Like, okay, no, he's not. That's absolutely ridiculous. And just for the record, if you're out there and you're like, there have been legal citizens deported, it's like, okay, if a mom who has children under the age of 4 is deported because she was not here legally, but her children were born here, do you want them to keep the kids here? No. Right? And so children who had their adult parents were deported, that the children are U.S. citizens. Yes, they went with their parents. That's appropriate. That's largely all that's happening. There's one other guy that was deported to Jamaica because I did the research into this, and this guy, his dad was in the military, and he was born in Germany, and so everybody makes the assumption, and I don't have all the details, but like none of the details that I've been able to find will state for sure that he actually was a U.S. citizen. It's just like, well, he was born to somebody who was in the U.S. military, therefore he should qualify, and there are ways to qualify to be a citizen. But the fact that he got deported and the fact that nobody has proof that he's a citizen suggests to me that he actually wasn't a citizen, right? And so like either his dad hadn't been a U.S. citizen long enough before he joined the military, which is one of the requirements, my understanding is, or like they never filled out the paperwork that they needed to fill out, and so the paperwork wasn't actually ever officially there. And so this is the stuff. So no, Trump is not deporting legal citizens. That's not what's happening. But anyway, they were trying to like have fear around that, fear around transgenderism. They tried to claim 5% of America is transgender or some insane number. Somebody did, but it was all. But I did meet a couple of people. I was actually surprised. Some people came up to us because they noticed I was wearing a red hat, but it was actually a red Muddy Waters hat. It wasn't a MAGA hat, but I should have expected that they would have,
a MOA hat.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, so a number of people came up and talked to us, and one of them is more center left, right? And she was talking about how far the Democrats have gone, and like it's even for her, she's like, I should have said something sooner. Now she's not on our side at this point. She's not come around all the way, but she recognizes that there's a huge problem over there. Even the people who want to stay on the left are like,
It's a huge problem.
yeah.
First of all, none of them is happy.
Right.
None of them has any of the energy that anyone really wants in their life, right? So that's a fundamental problem. Another is that the media that they control is so full of crap.
Oh gosh.
And so exposed. Every day they get exposed. So as people continue to see through that, they move to the right and they realize what a sham it was, and they're locked in, because once you break through that matrix, you're not going back in. So it's this constant leaking of support that they're experiencing. And in order to counter it, one way was bring in 20 million illegals, but so that didn't end up working. The other way is to just use fear, as you said.
Yeah, that's what they do.
To get low information voters to buy in, and that creates even more of a mob mentality. Yeah, and you see it with these nuts all over the state.
The No Kings rallies.
I just love No Kings, because they don't realize they're telling their whole spiritual void. If you say No Kings, that includes no kingship for Christ, right? Yeah, and they're just putting it out there as a mantra that they're proud of, and the only thing that will...
I don't know if they're aware we don't have a king. I don't know. Maybe somebody should inform. Maybe I'm thinking about going. I might go talk to.
Go tell them who's the king.
We don't have a king.
King Trump
of the United States. There's no king.
That's what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
Trump wants to be a king.
Well, that's after they claimed that Elon was actually the real president. That didn't last long, did it?
The Elon stuff was awesome. Because if you went from like 2010 to 2023, right? Like buying a Tesla was the ultimate virtue signal. Yeah. And wrapped in it was like the real reason, which is like, I'm rich, right? So they got to be like, I'm rich, and I love Earth so much, and I'm so amazing. And then on a dime, it flipped. Now they're firebombing Teslas, right? And it's exposing like just the horror show of the state of the spirituality. But they own this wealthy asset that they're like, what do I do here? So they stick these stickers on that say like, I was an owner before Elon, whatever, or
before Elon bought Twitter. Yeah,
I hate Trump or whatever they put on it. And you're like, wow, the time and energy that they're devoting to this. It's crazy. It's really crazy stuff. But look, Trump said we'd get sick of winning. And of course, we'll never get sick of winning. But there's something happening where the Democrats are now getting used to losing. And
well, there was somebody. So Charlie Kirk was here recently, and I think you were there as well. Yeah. Really great event. And
were you there?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cool.
Did
we see each other?
I was near the front. I don't think so. There were a lot of people there.
Yeah.
I might have maybe briefly. We might have seen each other briefly, but there were a lot of people. Like so many people.
Was it great?
That's actually where I met this young man named Forrest, who I hope to have on the podcast soon, who went from being a communist to a pretty strong Republican at this point.
No one's more anti-communist than a former communist.
That's right.
Because people are like, they get skeptical when I say that, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. You don't even understand communism until you're in it. Like that's one of the blessings that I have out of it is I understand the psychology at play. Right, which I think you can only understand if you're in it for a while, or at least adjacent to it for a while. But so
no, you're good. So I remember one of the things that Charlie Kirk said shortly after that event. It wasn't actually at that event, but it was fun to be there. And he said a lot of interesting things, and I think he gave a lot of people in Maine hope. But one of the things he said is nationally that he played a clip. On his podcast of this black Democrat who is basically saying we're in a tight spot here as Democrats. they're saying that it's going to be 35 years. I think the guy said 40, but then he said 2060. So I did different math than him, and I came to 35 years before the Democrats are out of the hole that they've dug for themselves. And I think you're talking about the leadership, right? Like that we have this like deep bench. They have nothing. They don't have anybody in the minors. They traded away all their talent, and they've got nothing to bring up. Like AOC is the best that they can do. And anyway, it's interesting. So that sounds really great nationally, but we live in Maine.
Sure do. Sure do.
So, well, I don't know if you've completely finished your story arc. You went from Ron Paul. You were in Ron Paul.
Yeah, let's keep going.
And then let's get into like the common sense for Maine PAC.
And I want to just finish the little rubric of analysis that I mentioned earlier, because after the product or policy and after the leadership personnel, then you have structure, organization.
Right.
And that's where the Democrats remain viable.
Very strong.
Is because they have this communistic hive mind, perfectly unified army that basically fills in the blank with the candidate. They handle all of their work from central Politburo, and it's extremely effective.
Yeah, I mean, people will show up to do something and they don't even know why they're there.
Don't even know why they're there.
Like we had that our Justice and Jazz event where we invited Representative Laurel Libby to speak, and people they didn't know why right here, but they didn't know why. And we had some people out there who decided instead of coming and enjoying the event, they were going to sit outside and have conversations. And we're hoping there may be at least the impact of at least one person having realized that that they have no hope on their side. A young man, a Gen Z. The Democrat Party has nothing to offer him except to hate himself.
And so, on the other side, we have,
but they have the structure.
We don't have the structure,
right?
And a lot of that's baked into the more independent, autonomous thinkers that we are. Right? That's just harder to corral our herd, and then and some of it is we have to look in the mirror and recognize where we've gotten far behind in terms of political organization. And one thing you learn on the far left is that, on the far left, everything's organization. Yeah. Obama was a community organizer. I mean, that's a career on the left as community organizer. On the right, we're like, that's not a job. What are you talking about? right. What do you do? Well, what they do is they get into the grassroots. Yeah. And they talk to people and they figure out how to scare them and motivate them.
That's right.
And that's what they do. Yep. So that's where that's the advantage they have. Now, it sounds like bad news that we're way behind on structure, but it's actually great news because they're pretty much optimized. Yep. Right? They can't really do much more. They've already used Trump as Hitler and all the Republicans are Nazis or whatever for 10 years.
It didn't work somehow.
It worked to the extent it's going to work.
Right.
And they can't squeeze too much out of that pulp anymore. Right? But on our side, it's like there's tremendous low-hanging fruit. And that's a good segue into what's happening, what we're up to in Maine, because we're trying to narrow that gap on the organizational front in a much better way, in a deeper way, in a more synergistic way, because we actually have substance, right? Yeah. When you have substance and you bring that substance together synergistically, amazing, right? And I think we're starting to see that. But before we get to that, I'll finish my arc, just because might as well finish what we started, right? Yeah. So Ron Paul, 2012, for me, it was maybe too weak in the international stuff, and maybe too.
That's one of the problems that I tend to have with libertarians. The libertarian ideology is that it doesn't tend to, I think, understand the Woodrow Wilson kind of mantra of walk softly and carry a big stick. Like that in order.
Wasn't that TR?
What?
Wasn't that TR?
What did I say?
Woodrow Wilson?
Sorry, my apologies. I don't like Woodrow Wilson. Teddy Roosevelt is my favorite 19th century, 20th century.
Had
president.
To correct you there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I'm so thankful that you did. Yes, Teddy Roosevelt. Yes. Teddy Roosevelt with walk softly and carry a big stick. And like the reality is there's because of the way that the international community operates, if America doesn't make its presence known, then China and other places are going to create horrible problems in our world. And like, we have to be, it doesn't mean we want to be involved in forever wars and that kind of nonsense, but we have to have a robust military and military intelligence in order to be able to, hold off the advancements that would come from, interesting, we've been talking a lot about communism, but like a communist nation. And also, there's a lot of people who I still am not in. I still have concerns about Putin. Not like I think the people a lot of people on the left, but I think Russia is a threat that needs to be considered, and so we need to have a robust military. We have to have a strong international presence, and I think that libertarians tend to be much more like, we're not going to engage in that. We're going to retreat.
It seems like for me, it seemed like a central contradiction, because on the one hand, they're so keen on the disaster of communism.
Yeah.
But then we have a quarter of the world's population in the Chinese Communist Party that will do absolutely anything without even a thought about the human carnage.
Yeah.
And they hate the United States. And then all of a sudden it transitions to, let them be. Well, it's like, let them be is international communism.
Right.
So that ain't going to work.
1984, we talk about it as like, oh my gosh, 1984, that could be coming here in America. It exists in China. That is the world they live in. Big Brother is there.
Yeah, when you think about the depth of the one-child policy.
Yeah.
For me, that's like the ultimate touchstone of how invasive and how totalitarian on the most sacred personal space that exists, And then, of course, what that led to was like a Holocaust of sorts for women, right? Because they needed to work the fields, and then for young girls, and if they were discarding babies and the whole thing, just a total disaster, of course.
Yeah. Now they have another problem. They don't have enough. They're trying to encourage people to have children.
Yeah, they've abandoned it.
The population.
Issues. Then Trump came down the escalator, and I fell in love.
Yep.
In the agape sense. Yeah. And have been ever since.
Yeah.
I got to be honest, it really wasn't the escalator. It took me a couple of months, but quickly, I was just hooked on those debates and the whole thing, because someone was speaking this kind of unvarnished truth and taking on the Bushes. I mean, if you think about it dynastically, he ended the Clinton dynasty. He ended the Bush dynasty by beating Jeb, and first by beating Hillary. Ended the Cheney dynasty by beating Liz, and he ended the Obama dynasty, which he's still doing now, but basically making Obama kind of very mid, as the kids would say, if even that.
We'll see what happens with as a result of the Russiagate stuff.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, which we've all known about for about 10 years or whatever, but somehow is news.
Right.
It's like, I'm like, I've known this forever, but now it's
power.
Yeah, but it's still not. I mean, not like mainstream media is talking about it, so.
They're not talking about it, but it's happening.
Yeah.
They say that Brennan is on the lam right now in Austria.
Oh, wow.
Because they know what's up. You saw Comey put out a video yesterday about Taylor Swift. Sounds like a total lunatic. Literally, he's like analyzing the evolution of Taylor Swift and how much she means to him. And I mean, these folks are gone. Yeah, and because they were so drunk on power, they admitted a lot of it. Like Comey famously said, "Oh yeah, we didn't follow protocol. We just sent some agents over to the White House." And Brennan does his audio tape where he just talks about all kinds of things. And in law, we call those admissions. And admissions are not hearsay. They're exceptions to the hearsay rule. They come right into evidence. So they basically, made their own bed because they never thought they could lose. But love or hate Trump, even for folks who do, you can't contest the momentous significance historically, because that was supposed to be Hillary against Jeb. Jeb had raised like $150 million, and he was leading in the polls, and it was not going to matter. Like, it really hadn't mattered since, I don't know, Kennedy was killed, right? In terms of who was going to win the presidency.
Right. I mean, because they were all deep state one way or the other. Right.
Right. And then by taking out
Maybe not Reagan. Was Reagan deep state?
Reagan was definitely more deep state than a lot of folks like to acknowledge. And a lot of that happened with...
Don't say it. Republicans watch this. They love Reagan.
Hey,
I'm just... I'm kidding. I think a lot of like more newer Republicans than the older Republicans. The old guard Republicans, I think, have this kind of like... I think because Reagan won so dramatically in 1984, right? With like he won like over 500.
Yeah, there's those positive associations.
And people just think back to like, oh my gosh, those are the glory days. But the reality is like, I mean, he's part of the reason that we lost California, right? Because he mass amnesty for a bunch of illegal aliens. And there's a lot of people that argue that that is why that's what caused California to shift more blue. And there are some faults with Reagan. So I don't hate Reagan, but no. Like I think that like there's a little bit of an over glorification of Reagan within the Republican Party.
It was
somehow he invented his own amendment. Not amendment, but commandment.
Yeah.
The 11th commandment. Yeah. That I'm like, I only have 10 in my Bible.
Right.
But
yeah, it's because it wasn't really about Reagan. What you said, it was about the deep state influence.
Right. That's the major issue.
His vice president was the former head of the CIA, George Bush.
Right.
And
CIA. He was the head of the CIA during
Ford, I think.
During what's his name there? Kennedy?
No.
Oh, he wasn't the head. No. I thought he was the head during Kennedy.
During the early '60s? No.
Okay.
I don't think so. But yeah, when you have the CIA as your number two, and he was very active, and then the assassination attempt in '82, that's very interesting to look into, in terms of.
I need to look into that more. But
yeah, there's some very, that was a deep state flex in many people's minds. Yeah. Reagan was no Trump in terms of really blasting through the constraints, and when he took out Hillary and Jeb and all of a sudden gave us a real alternative, bringing the issue of illegal immigration to bear, bringing working class issues back to the Republican Party.
Well, bringing the actual issues. Yeah, I mean, this is what caused Trump to win, right? He started talking about things in ways that make sense to the common man, right? He wasn't talking above them. He wasn't using flowery language. He was just speaking like truth about what is actually going on in our world. Like one of the first things that attracted me to this, and I keep having conversations with libertarians on tariffs and world trade and stuff like that, and I'm trying to understand where they're coming from, and it keeps falling. Like the idea that we could have a permanent trade deficit and that would not negatively impact the American economy is absurd to me, and I still can't. I'm just trying to have them help explain how that makes any sense. But that was one of the first things. So I remember, like, I didn't pay a lot of attention to politics growing up, but I paid attention to some things that like stuck out to me. So when I was in high school and I was learning about NAFTA, I remembered that. Right, North American Free Trade Agreement. This is where we initially it was just with Canada and Alaska, where we opened up free trade and didn't have tariffs, and then it became expanded to the entire world. And then you had Clinton, and I was saying this during the Obama administration, right? So that Clinton does that. Then Bush comes in and gives. So obviously, free trade means major corporations in the U.S. were like, we want to move overseas. So some of them started doing that, and then Bush comes in and says, you know what, we're going to stimulate the economy. We're going to give tax breaks to major corporations. And they're like, now we've got money. We already wanted to move operations overseas. Now we have money to do it. Let's build some factories, right? And this is where you saw the exodus of so many businesses in the United States between these two administrations. But then Obama comes in and is like, I'll do you one better. Let's overregulate employment to make it even more expensive to have people here and force more businesses to move overseas. And Trump, this is the first thing that impressed me about him, and is that he talked about it. Like nobody else that I heard in politics that were talking about this, and it was something that me, barely paying attention to politics, I mean, to a degree, but not really. And I'm like, oh wow, I was not necessarily initially.
Yeah.
I think I voted for Cruz in the primary, but I heard him say that, and I actually, for the longest time, like I was so busy with other things between work and doing stuff for my church and with Christian organizations, that I was not really heavily engaged in what was going on in politics. So that when I got to the point where I had some time before the 2016 election and just sat down and listened to a whole bunch of what Trump was saying, I was like, it's all like, we'll bring it back to something that we're going to get to in a bit. Common sense policies that just make sense.
And
right?
from the far left in the early 2000s, where I was, it was the far left that was speaking about the problems of globalization.
Yeah.
And the Democrat Party didn't embrace it because that was the uniparty. Both parties were fully pro-globalization. But it created such carnage, like you said, such devastation throughout the country, that whoever was going to pick up and mainstream the anti-globalization points was going to have incredible success. And Trump's the one who did it.
Yeah.
Trump did it on immigration, but more importantly, he did it on economics. And he's and now he's actually doing it, which is we've never in American history that I've been alive. I shouldn't say never. That's crazy. But in our lives, and I've been following this stuff since I was single digits, had any politician who actually did what they said they were going to do. That's as a matter of routine.
Yeah.
That's a crazy phenomenon.
Is he perfect? No, but like nobody has been as like on point, as like consistently moving forward the agenda that he said he was going to do. And you have to give him a lot of credit in 2022 because he ran 2 campaigns. He told us what he was going to do, and he told us what Biden was going to do. And he was right on about what Biden was going to do.
And then he told us what Kamala was going to do.
And he did. Well, fortunately, we avoided that. But yes, he did. Yeah.
This is so anyway.
Yeah.
Trump.
Get distracted
And then I'll
Trump.
fast forward to the most important, which is coming to Christ in 2020, which for me recast everything and brought just so much more purpose and depth and put politics in its right place, which is secondary to that, and infused with that, because there's no political solution to spiritual problems.
Right. Yeah.
There's no material solution. There's no physical solution. There's no any solution to spiritual problems. So, and I think that is what gives us hope, because if the Republicans just run the table and take over, but we don't have Christ in it, then it'll just be another disaster.
Yeah, we need a revival. We need a turning back to God, because you think about some of the problems in our society, like education, for instance, right? Education is a train wreck for a variety of reasons. One of those reasons is the wokeism, the fact that they're not teaching the right things. They're spending so much time confusing kids with gender, confusing kids with racial, Marxist racial ideologies, and all kinds of nonsense, right? But even if you take that out, there are still huge problems in the education system that a lot of conservatives are just sitting here and they're like, we just need to get this out and get this in and we'll be fine. It's like, no, there are tons of kids with trauma. There are tons of kids that are part of these like incredibly broken homes. And we need a social revival of sorts in order to be able to help our society to heal that the government can't fix, especially either by the too big government that's trying to replace parents, or the appropriately sized government that we're trying to fight for. Either way, we need a revival in our society, because we have government and cannot fix these problems. Only I think there's only a spiritual solution to restoring this great nation.
Yeah, we have a broken culture in many ways. I think what makes the market economy so amazing is I look at it as like a thermometer for your culture, because you're going to give people what they want, but then you're going to see what they want, right? And if what you see is you're going to pay this athlete $50 million a year, and you're going to have Pornhub that's just doing amazing, and you're going to have all these things, the type of materialism that we have run rampant.
Yeah,
you're just getting a temperature reading on where the culture is spiritually.
Yeah,
and that's really, it's better. It's way better than not getting the temperature reading, because now you know what you're dealing with. But it's not an end in and of itself. The market, the market's going to give you the spiritual level that you're at, and it's not a great look right now for America.
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's divorce rate or a million other things that we all know about. It's not good.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, what's happening right now politically is infused with Christianity, right? You see all of the female pics that Trump has, wearing their crosses on national television.
Yeah.
You see the prayer gatherings. You see the bending of the knee to Christ that Trump does. And now, when you see it from, Trump is different than, say, a Romney or pick a politician who would talk about their faith but put forward like a picture perfect facade, right? Trump is in many ways the embodiment of the sinful nature that we all have, and yet he's able to accomplish, and yet he bends the knee, for one.
Well, it's interesting because I don't like when you say he bends the knee. He's never claimed to be a Christian.
That's not true.
I've heard some speeches of him specifically saying, "I'm not a Christian."
I've never heard that.
Oh yeah,
But
maybe more. Either way, I think I see him as a Nebuchadnezzar type figure from the Bible, where he's not somebody like Nebuchadnezzar was not somebody who believed in God, although he does have what appears to be a conversion at some point, but more like he saw how powerful God is, and he had reverence for God, which is a step in the right direction. And maybe Trump has made more steps, but that's the way I see Trump. And again, I've heard him talk about Christians in the third person, and then I've heard him say that he's maybe who knows, AI could have created it, but that he's not himself a Christian. But again, he does have that reverence for in terms of like the value in our society. He's been the best president for advancing Christian principles that we've seen in our generation at the very least, but even beyond. But he bends the knees.
Which I guess you disagree with if you don't think that he's a Christian. I've never seen that, and I've seen to the contrary where he's basically, articulating his faith in Christ.
In Christ or God? Because I know that I would see him as a deist. But from what I've heard, I'd love if there's something out there.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
I'd be interested.
I'll send it to you.
I've
seen a lot of clips.
Yeah.
And he used to go to church at Norman Vincent Peale's church in Manhattan.
Okay.
The author of The Power of Positive Thinking.
Okay.
Which, if you've ever read, is basically shows how Trump operates. He's so this inverted world with the media that's Democrat and upside down. They paint him one way, but he's actually the opposite. So they make him into this toxic, negative guy, but actually he's the most positive communicator there's ever been. He talks the economy into strength.
And just like people who it's a big difference between Trump in rhetoric, what he's saying in front of a crowd, or when there are some less appealing reporters who are asking him certain questions. He sometimes, like his response, I'm not a huge fan of, but like when people are actually like engaging with him in a smaller group, just about everybody who has that opportunity likes him. Yeah. Because he's nice, he's polite, and he does a lot of the things that I think endear him to many people. And so there again, to your point, like I just juxtaposition that to like the way in which he's presented in the media as this like horrible tyrant that basically hates people and wants to rule over people and all this other kind of stuff. And he does have some fun with them.
Certainly.
Yeah, he loves to poke them, and like I think that's like his considering when he makes comments about maybe running in 2028. Like he's just giving them stuff to like run around on. Yeah. Just because he knows that it'll go.
Well, I mean, it's actually it's going to be interesting because they're non-consecutive terms. And if you think of term limits in Maine, for example, it doesn't apply to non-consecutive terms.
I think a president, it's 2 terms. I don't think it's.
But there could be an implied consecutive to it.
I think it's a bad play.
We'll see. It wasn't a bad play for FDR.
FDR, that was before that provision was there. They made it because of FDR, because FDR essentially wanted to become. And so it was up until then. It was like a. Everybody kind of knew, but it was an unwritten rule, and FDR did what he did, and so they made it a written rule.
I don't think the 2 terms does not say 2 consecutive terms, or any 2 terms.
Right.
There could be an implication that it is 2 consecutive, and we'll see. I still think he's playing. I don't think he intends to run in 2028.
It
depends how strong things get.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Trump, but I think it's better for our nation to have somebody else come in and lead.
Maybe I'm just playing around now.
Yeah, he might be. This guy right here. This is who I'd like to see. Vivek. I'm a huge Vivek fan.
You don't have well, yeah.
I've listened to the book, if that's what you're wondering.
No.
Why
would I?
I also like our vice president, which is what's his name there? JD Vance. Like his book, Hillbilly Elegy.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I like him as well.
Yeah, we have a deep bench.
We do.
So bringing it. We've been going how long?
A while. The timer's over there on the phone, so we'll
what time is it?
It's 5:40.
It's 5:40.
Yeah, we've been going a while.
Wow.
So
okay, well let's bring it home. Let's bring it home.
Yeah. So
what are we doing in Maine?
Yeah, what are we doing in Maine? What's the common sense for Maine PAC? I imagine you want to bring common sense back to Maine as part of what that is there. But how are you doing it? What's
So I was invited to a group of heavy hitter businessmen in southern Maine who were going to get off the sidelines and realizing the existential moment we're in terms of not being able to do business here.
Yeah.
And all the downstream effects of being villainized as successful businessmen and women. And when I went there, I ended up being asked to lead it because of just, it's a God thing, really. How I don't really know, but here I am.
Apparently, you'd earned the respect of some key players.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful actually because when I introduced myself, I led with the impact of coming to Christ, and I didn't know the group, and I thought that might go over like a fart in church in front of a group of businessmen and women, but it actually was very warmly received, and that felt great. And then I was just, because I didn't have anything planned, I started talking about some of the things I had learned in some recent struggles about small group dynamics. We don't have time to get into all that, but then we're like, okay, you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, I do. So we set up the PAC at the beginning of April, and we've just been hitting on all cylinders. And so what are some of the ideas in it? One is common sense, obviously. It's inherently a great concept that a trial lawyer is going to always use if they have the argument at trial. But it also offers this awesome contrast with the nonsense that the Democrats are straddled with right now, right? Because there's all these nonsensical positions. So strategically, there's one organizing principle, which is turning Maine red, House, Senate, and Blaine House in 2026. That's what unites all of the members. And outside of that, it's a very broad tent. We have folks who lean, definitely independent, maybe even Democrat, but everyone agrees that at this moment in time, for reasons of survival in Maine, it has to be red in 2026. And so we're not a Trumper organization per se. We're not leaning into MAGA as a messaging device, because that's not necessarily where Maine is right now.
Yeah.
But we are focusing like a laser beam on the Democrat nonsense. And so those 80-20 issues, whether it's dudes and girls sports, whether it's favoring illegals over Mainers, whether it's solar energy policy that has us with the greatest energy price increases in the country.
36% or something.
And the number two was Connecticut at half of that.
18. Yeah.
Right? Half.
Yeah.
So just something's very, very wrong
in
the state of Denmark. And so we're leaning into all of those issues, and now they don't have air cover from the Biden administration anymore. Yeah. Right? Everyone was just ducking and dodging, and that was kind of working because it was kind of the ethos of those few years. But now they have to explain themselves. And like we were talking about the lack of leadership nationally, locally it's even worse. I mean, do we even have a governor? I'm always struck by how completely absent Mills is from anything.
Yeah.
Like there's no comments, there's no communication, there's no policy, there's just nothing. And then you look at the cast of the clown car that's their gubernatorial primary. Just
the Nepo Club?
The Nepo, Team Nepo. and it's just one wackier than the next.
Yeah.
And so we just want to put a microphone in front of their face, and make them speak and quote them and let them do the talking. because there's no question the majority of Mainers are sick of that.
Yeah.
And the dudes and girls sports issue is a great one, but just every day there's stories of just the public safety issues that we're having.
Public safety is huge. I was talking, what was that? I guess I was on the Ray Richardson show. Apparently I'm now on Mondays.
Oh, cool.
And so I was on there and we were talking about crime, like, public safety. How is this how has this become a partisan issue? Like, it's just evidence of the fact that the Democrat Party is unpalatable, right? Like, because but that's one of the major issues. What was the other thing? Health insurance. Did we talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the whole. I mean, really, it's this Medicaid. New Hampshire has the same population as we do, but we have 4 times as many people on Medicaid.
Yeah.
Right. You've got people. I mean, it's crazy what's going on in Maine, and so much of the healthcare system is based on Medicaid payments.
And the state is not good at paying them.
Right.
so everybody else's insurance has got to go up to compensate for it.
So you have a party that's taken spending from $7 billion to $12 billion effectively.
Yeah.
And change. And what have we gotten for it? Everything's worse.
Yeah.
The roads are worse. The healthcare is worse. The housing situation is a disaster. The only people who get any services are illegals, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, it's epically bad how bad their policies are.
Yeah.
And now you got Angus King III, Hannah Pingree, Shenna Bellows. Are you kidding me? Who's the other dude?
Don't forget Troy Jackson.
Troy Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean,
who loves Mamdani, if that tells you anything about him. Full on, willing to admit it, communist Troy Jackson.
A communist Muslim.
That's it. Mamdani.
A real oxymoron if there ever was one. But what a mess.
Yeah.
What a mess. And they can't moderate because the cognitive dissonance is so strong that and meaning psychologically their identity is so hinged to the whole matrix of DEI nonsense and Trump hating, basically, that no amount of reality, no facts are going to change their mind. So they're locked in, they're doubling and tripling down, and that's our biggest opportunity. I'll say this not to toot my own horn, just because I was on the radio as well, predicting it long before it happened. I thought Kamala was going to be the candidate. Why did I think that? Because she was the end point of all the DEI nonsense, right? She was white and black and Asian Pacific, and she was a mom and not a mom, and a wife but probably gay, and you could just go on, right? Every box you could create, she checked. So it's like, clearly that's going to be the end, the beautiful basket that they're going to want, and that, thank God, didn't work. Although just barely for a few moments there, it was touch and go, right?
I'm just so thankful that I've said this before, but maybe not on the podcast. But I'm reminded of this story from the Old Testament, right, where Jehoshaphat goes to Ahab, and Ahab wants to go to war, and Jehoshaphat's like, "Well, have you sought a prophet of the Lord?" And he's like, "Here are my prophets," and they all say, "I'm going to win a great victory." And Jehoshaphat's like, no, a prophet of the Lord, right? And so he's like, there's this guy, but he never says anything good about me. And so he goes out, gets that guy. He comes in, and the guy's like, you're gonna. Well, actually, he mocks him initially. He's like, "You will win a great victory," right? And Ahab's like, "I told you to only tell me what God tells," because he's obviously knows he's being mocked, and he's like, "Here is what the Lord says. How shall I convince Ahab to go to war so that I can kill him? I know. I will use his own prophets who will tell him he's going to win a great victory." And anyway, so then he, even after that prophecy goes out, but then he tries to be creative, and he dresses himself as like more of a common person, whereas Jehoshaphat was wearing his royal robes, and people were going to try and kill Jehoshaphat, realized, that's not Ahab. And then Ahab gets shot by a random arrow and dies. So anyway, that's the story, right? And I think of that, and I think that Kamala's moment was when whoever convinced her to go and actually start doing interviews. Because up until then, and polling ended up at the end, turned out pretty close, right?
Sure.
It was pretty accurate. Up until then, she was polling much higher. And then she did the interview, I think it was the 60 Minutes, and then started to go down, and then the Brett Baird, and then it was over. Like once she did the Brett Barrett interview, it was over. I think if she, who knows, right? Like we can't tell what might have happened, but I wonder what would have happened if she hadn't. She had
Kept
just
the buying
continued to
strategy,
not.
the basement
Yeah,
strategy.
she. Anyway, but that's
Yeah.
how close we
Yeah,
were.
so that's where we were then. But now, right? Because
Yeah.
that DEI train is kind of
Oh,
derailed,
it's
right?
toast.
But what is the psychology now of the Democrats as they continue to lose every day? I think that these Democrats, these especially the white leftists who just hate themselves, that they want Trump's boot on their neck. That's kind of like their end.
Well, they're trying to make it look like it is, yeah.
Right. Like they want to. But what is it really in leftist language? They want to. They're done with just identifying and supporting the oppressed. They want it for themselves. They want to be the oppressed.
Yeah.
They want to be the handmaid's tale. And so they actually want to lose. They don't know it. They don't acknowledge it. It's subconscious, but they want to lose.
I think they're so confused.
And we're going to be happy to give them what they want.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the Common Sense group is fantastic. Why? Because it's a group of, it's not exclusively, but the ethos is successful businessmen and women who in this state that is 50th out of 50th in new business starts and has a very unfavorable climate to business. Yeah. These folks have succeeded up against the headwinds. And so they're extraordinary people.
Yeah.
And very competent. No one's making any money in the group, which is huge. You know, my experience.
On the group, you mean?
On the group or in the group?
I mean, those business owners are making money, but not as it
not
relates
through
to
the group.
Not through
right?
the group.
No one's on payroll.
Right.
No one's got a stake in it financially. No one's even trying to run for office, really, or that I can think of. And so there's a purity of purpose. It's that single-minded purpose, which is very existential. If we don't do this, our businesses that we've worked our whole lives for may well fail, or we may see the writing on the wall, right? And
have to leave.
Yeah. So it's like, let's go all in on that common purpose. And you have these extraordinary people who know how to get things done. And, you know, all these alpha personalities, if there's one challenge is kind of getting us to get used to working together.
Well, as you kind of mentioned, challenges in general, working with Republicans is, especially when you're working with Republican business owners or just business owners in general who've been successful, like they tend to have a lot of confidence and they also tend to have their own ideas.
And they're used to calling their shots because they're the boss.
Right. And so having that group of people work together has got to be challenging, but they're willing to do it for the sake of the cause.
Yeah. And, you know, we have two mantras that I try to promote. One is check your ego at the door.
Yep.
And that's huge because egos not checked at the door destroy things.
Yep.
And the other is if we're doing our recruitment well, then every single person is going to be both essential but insufficient to success. And so the essential part is really beautiful because really that's what everyone wants to feel like they're integral to something. And actually every single person in our group is. It's amazing actually what every single person who's that kind of successful, focused, hardworking person brings to a small group. But of course, completely insufficient on our own, as we have been, just getting, you know, romped all these years. So there's a humility there by being on the losing end for so long in Maine, where it's like, okay, that I didn't have the answer, so let's see what we can do together.
Yep.
And it's actually, you know, way beyond what I had imagined. I just thought if we got those right people together and created those synergies and stayed in the ring and let good ideas kind of take root and blossom, that we could have something special. But I actually could never have imagined what's actually occurring, which is just individuals, right? The amazing human beings inspiring each other and supporting each other and putting their time, treasure, and energy into something this important. What it's yielding is awesome. And so sky's the limit, I think, actually. Yeah. And I think we're on our way. You know, it's early yet. We have a lot of time. We just got started in April, right? But I think we're going to start hitting our stride and start becoming increasingly unstoppable.
Awesome.
Which is really awesome. And it's awesome because It's something new that we haven't had in Maine, which means it can be a difference maker. It's awesome because we're not antagonistic to any other group, right? And you see sometimes you get a little sense of a little territorialism or a little defensiveness from other established entities on our side of the aisle, but we're quick to point out that we're in it together.
Yeah.
We're all going to win. And,
Yeah.
and you know, what do they say? Victory has 1,000 fathers, defeat is an orphan.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's the plan. Win, win. And hey, whoever wants to take credit for it, knock yourselves out. We don't care.
Yeah.
Not even a little.
Yeah. If we can get somebody in the Blaine House, we can win the House, we can win the Senate. Maybe we can right this ship here.
And quick. And if Trump shows us anything, it's that it can be quick. Turns out if you get exceptional people, like his cabinet, probably the most incredible assemblage of people in the political realm that we've ever seen.
Yeah. Just
when you go person by person. And we can do the same in Maine.
Yeah.
We can do executive orders on day one in Maine.
Yeah.
And these problems are not actually that difficult.
Yeah, you just it's like some of them are similar to, like, I know within law enforcement, right? Similar to the border, we didn't need to change any laws, right?
Totally.
We just needed to enforce them, and they needed to be allowed to do their job, right? Same thing here in the state of Maine. The current environment is not encouraging the law enforcement to do its job.
You have people in control who want to destroy things,
right?
And if you put people in, human organization is actually quite fragile, as every communist regime has showed. You put people in power who want to destroy things, and it will be destroyed. Yeah, it's not that hard to destroy complex systems. But if you put people in power who want to fix things and solve problems, they're, even the hardest ones. Before Trump in 2016, we were told illegal immigration was this completely intractable disaster that just was baked into American society. And then he was like, well, actually, why don't we build a wall and actually police the border? And boom, it was solved. And solved so much that it was a non-issue in 2020 to his detriment. Yeah. And now again, after Biden, it's even more striking. Yeah. All we heard were all these lies, whether inflation is transitory or dudes and girls sports is not a big deal. But when it came to the border, it was, we need legislation, like you just said.
And the legislation would have allowed for 5,000 illegal crossing per day.
A day.
And we're at how many?
0. Okay. 3 months in a row at zero. And if we had a fair media, then
that would be reported. They would probably also report on the wars that Trump's ended.
5 wars now.
I think it's 6.
Well, if you count Russia, which is about to end.
Yeah.
But the ones, when you saw the Armenian and the Azerbaijanis meeting at the White House 2 weeks ago, just a love fest after a brutal war that no one could solve. And you could go on.
Same thing with Congo and Rwanda. Right?
Congo and Rwanda and India, Pakistan, and what are we forgetting?
A lot.
Yeah, it's just absolutely amazing.
I don't know if I would quite call this a war. I guess it was, but they when I saw the list, it counted what was going on between Israel and Iran, which was short, but he did end it.
That's an incredible example because you had people losing their mind who were, this is going to be another, horrible Iraq, Afghanistan situation. And not only did we not lose one person, but he took out Iran's nuclear capabilities. Yeah. Again, another monstrous issue that completely unsolvable. And then he just handles it. And then you have the media just yammering.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I was concerned. I flew through Qatar to visit my wife. I was in Kenya when this happened, and I was flying back through Qatar.
Oh yeah, I'd be concerned. Huh?
And Iran fired at Qatar, and the airspace was closed.
You're like, well, how did I end up here?
I might have to fly home a different way.
Just get out of the air.
But I was a little concerned that who knows? Maybe World War III starts. There was, because Iran has allies that don't like us, and if they wanted to move, that this was an opportunity, right? And fortunately, the world chose peace. But I think a lot of that had to do with the strong, and I think this was a big part of what it was for Trump, is he was showing that, yes, I walk softly, or I don't know if he walks softly, but he carries a big stick, and he needed to pull the stick out and show it to people. In order to remind them that it's there.
And right? The thing that he does beautifully is he also carries a big carrot. It's a carrot and a stick. Yeah. And he just directly with the tariffs, it just has tremendous power. That's what he did with India, Pakistan. He said, you do this one more day, no trade deal. Yeah. 100% tariffs.
Yeah.
Where do we side?
Yeah.
Right? And that's
Yeah.
what's happening with Putin. That's actually what is happening right now. He's saying, I'm going to shut off. India will not be buying your oil next week. And you're not going to sell your oil. And there'll be bread lines in Moscow. And what are world leaders going to do with that? They see the writing on the wall.
I mean, this is the thing that we were told, and we should probably wrap up pretty soon, but they basically
a couple hours?
were just, I have to get to a Bible study, but
Okay,
I would love to keep talking. Yeah. But
this is why we can't talk that much. It's what happens on the phone with us.
That's exactly what happens on the phone.
I was driving down from Caribou.
Am I doing all right as a conversation? Anyway.
Terrific.
So, but shoot, I lost my but we were essentially told that, like, when it comes to like world trade, like people are trying to argue like that we need China more than China needs us, and all these other countries, we need them more than they need us, and they clearly don't think so.
No.
Right? Like once they actually have to deal with the consequences, they change their tune really quickly, which shows that we have more power. We are anybody who's actually paying attention should know this, but we have more power in the trade because everybody else feeds off of us. Everybody else is living off of us.
We're the golden goose.
And we need to fix America. Hopefully at some point we can start to tackle the national debt. But that's a whole other story. Here in the state of Maine, though, we need to win Maine. That's where the common sense
100%.
for Maine PAC is another organization that's fighting alongside the Republican Party and whoever else is trying to help turn Maine red in 2026, because if we don't,
curtains.
It's a frightening situation.
The fat lady is warming up her vocal cords.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is, like, America becomes another failed state. I mean, not America, but Maine becomes another failed state, and like, how long before we'll be able to turn the tide again? Because typically, governors, right, like, whoever gets elected this year is probably going to be there for 8 years, right? That's the idea. So if we get another Democrat in there, and they continue to advance this, like, you're going to have one of the problems that we're already running into is too many of you at home are leaving the state, and we need you to stay here to vote. Like, I'm just kidding, but seriously, like, a lot of people are leaving. And so when we're trying to get more and more people to realize how important it is for them to vote Republican, while we're also bleeding Republicans that are moving to more conservative states because of the policies here. If we lose in 2026, I think we're going to lose a lot of the people that we need in order to be able to have a chance of winning.
This isn't 1930 where you kind of 90, you have to stay where you're born.
Right.
We just grab a U-Haul, head down to Florida. No, I'm not planning to do that because I'm not wired that way. But rationally, I mean, why would you stay in a state run by communists?
Well, especially where you could move to New Hampshire.
Still,
you wanted to live up this
keep
way.
your job,
right? Yeah,
just head over to Portsmouth or wherever.
Another option.
Conway.
So it's so important to get involved. You guys you probably don't have all the details you want to share in it, but you have a couple of events coming up.
Got a lot of events. Yeah. Tomorrow night we got a comedy night happening. It's a little late for that to be promoted, but it goes to the point of bringing us together, right? Having fun.
Yep.
Our relationships are so much deeper and more real and reliable than the oppositions who are just, doing this with everything.
Yeah.
What's the last letter? What's the new letter on the LGBTQIA acronym that we need to say so that we don't get fired?
I don't know. I got lost after IA.
IA, right?
Plus.
Plus.
Divided by sign. No, that's what
Latinx.
Yeah.
Man, what a lost group.
Yeah.
But so that's tomorrow night. But then we have the next gubernatorial debates.
Yeah.
We're going to have 2 nights, September 16th and 23rd, both Tuesdays. And we're going to have probably 5 candidates in each night. Try to just balance it out so it just works without favoring any candidate, obviously. But it needs to be 2 nights so that everyone gets the right amount of time. And that's going to be a tremendous event.
Yeah.
And that's going to be at Dunegrass, which is owned by one of our members, Dominic. And the last one, we did one in May, which was kind of do a little early kickoff to the political season. It was a huge success. It was just such a nice experience to be together and hear from the candidates early. But now it's going to be next level because now things are heating up, and it's time to really separate the wheat from the chaff, and so that we can really, coalesce behind folks that we think can win.
Yeah.
So September 16th at Dunegrass is the place to be, and no charge, and just a capacity issue. But we'll also film it, and it'll be on our website, commonsenseformaine.com. And you can also donate to Common Sense for Maine at commonsenseformaine.com. And we do need money, even though we have a lot of folks with resources putting it in themselves. You know, the more the better in terms of what we're trying to do. There's no shortage of things that we need to spend money on in order to get over the finish line. And you know, sometimes I convince myself we're going to just romp and it'll be a landslide and it'll just be a red tsunami in Maine. But more likely we're gonna win the House by 1 seat and the Senate by 1 seat and the Blaine House by, you know, some small fraction of a percentage, right? So we gotta keep our shoulder to the wheel. Yeah,
we need everybody. I like to remind people that we lost, Trump lost Maine by 6.5%. So now he didn't campaign here, so have some more hope. And like because of TDS and the mainstream media, there's a lot of like people that are just like
they're done.
They're going to have a hard time voting for Trump. But I think when it comes to like the governor's race, I think it's a different story. So I think that we're very much within range. But we do need to work hard, and we have to contend with the fact that there's this third-party candidate who is a former Republican. I don't know. Anyway, blows my mind. I found out recently, because I'm still new to the Republican movement in Maine, that this guy used to be the chair of the party. But anyway, the third-party candidate, he was I will have him on the podcast, I think September 8th. Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. So maybe he's a Democrat plant.
I don't know. It's interesting. I have no idea. I mean, he's been in Maine politics for a long period of time. Again, former chair of the Republican Party, but has left. He's clearly left the reservation, and that's maybe that's his play. He's going for the fiscally responsible and socially liberal to take the people who are socially liberal in the Democrat Party, but are tired of the insanity. I don't know, but we'll see.
Well, politics there's no shortage of people who are delusional about their own appeal.
Right? Yeah. No.
Because there's no lane for him, but
doesn't seem like it to me. But
no.
But yeah, we'll see. Time will tell. But anyway, thank you all for watching. And we'll see you back here in the future. Thanks for joining, Dov.
Thanks for everything
really
you do.
Appreciate
Chuck.
it.
You didn't mention once that you're the chair of the Cumberland County GOP and doing a phenomenal job.
Thanks. We do try. Yeah, we're doing what we can, and you know, I've got some good people that are helping out in various roles, and we definitely need more people to get involved. But yeah, it's so far it's been fun. We won't be at your comedy night tomorrow because it's comedy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have our Cumberland County.
We keep scheduling things on your meeting nights.
I think we're gonna pass that up for next month and come join you. It's looking like that's what's going to happen.
Which night is the 16th?
Yeah,
that'd be great.
So I think that's what I've heard from everybody.
We're going to record it and put it online, and then there'll be another one the next week. So you don't need to.
We're not going to compete, right? Cool. We're trying to get people, like if we're trying to get people to come out. I've got to ask the question: could I still convince some people to come to my meeting? Some, yes, but some were going to come to the gubernatorial debate anyway. And I'd rather have everybody go to that, because we need to figure out who's going to be our governor, and the best way to do that is to hear what they have to say, especially by comparing them right next to one another. And so I think these are really important. So I'm glad you guys are doing that. So so thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll see you guys back here in a couple of days. And yeah, thanks for coming on.
Hey, all right. God bless.